Well, DB, I know everyone's been talking, trying to get you riled up, but let's get you riled up in a different way, right? Because we have beef, because apparently you want to go against America's sweetheart in the Sidney Red Raiders tonight, which I don't understand why. You can be a Lakeview guy through and through, but the Sidney Red Raiders are making a 400-mile trip to play at 5 o'clock in Central Time against the tall grass of Columbus Lakeview. They've got every element against them. It's 11-0 versus 11-0. You couldn't ask for a better matchup in C1.
I don't have I don't have a pick. I just have an affinity. So if you want me to like ride with Sidney just for GP and like Team Action Jackson, that's fine. Like I don't really have a dog in the hunt or the fight in the hunt, or I don't know. What's the analogy? It's something you would say, Austin. What is it?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to make too many dog references yet, because it's there's going to be plenty of dogs on the field wherever you are in football this weekend. So I mean, it's going to be
That's
good.
a play on
But
words.
not to get too into football already, but C1 probably has the two most dynamic matchups in the semifinals. When you look at what Lakeview and Sidney will do, that game could be 3-0 if either team could kick a field goal. And then on the opposite side, Wahoo and Ashland Greenwood might put up 70 points combined. So it's going to be like a fun matchup of Friday night when you look just, and really down the road too. I mean, those two schools are not going to be tremendously far from each other depending on who comes out of there, unless of course it is Sidney that can make it to Lincoln. So I'm looking forward to tonight. I think that there's a lot of matchups that are a lot closer than we've been in a lot of years past across all classes. It's going to be, I think that there's a lot of different variations of teams that could get to Lincoln in each class, and that makes things very exciting.
Austin, with that Ashland Greenwood Yahoo game, obviously.
Say Yahoo?
Yes, he did.
I certainly did.
Yahoo!
Wow, Kip Bricken's about to go for 270 now, because
he doesn't need any encouragement because he's already pretty sweet.
That Ashland Greenwood Wahoo game, pardon. Do you see any reason for the discrepancy in those results that Ashland has had with them, considering where they're at basically against every other team?
Well, yeah, I mean, Derek Tonjes is very good. He's very accurate. And Ashland Greenwood has played up to snuff, if not, I mean, past to the point of teams that are probably close to their level. Yeah. Wahoo, and everyone's made the big caboodle about, Millard South and the talent discrepancy over this past, calendar year of where they have played in the regular season games, right? But that's the Class A model. Wahoo and C1 probably has that same level. But the difference is that Wahoo, every time that they've played a top 10 team, and they have played a couple of them, they take them to the woodshed every single time. And maybe it's a bit of the intimidation factor. It's the thought that the other team walks in, they know they're playing a two-time defending state champ. But Wahoo always handles their business early. And it truthfully is because of how talented Kip Brigham is and how deep that roster can go too. You have to be an excellent defense. You have to contain and frustrate Wahoo from the very beginning. And not a lot of teams have been able to do that over the past few seasons. And so that's where it starts and ends. And so when you go back to that week 2 game, when it was a 35-0 game for Ashland Greenwood, or for Wahoo in that win, I should say, Tonjes was not his accurate self because Wahoo got him off his rhythm. He wasn't able to find a lot of his receivers, and he made a couple of mistakes. So if Ashland Greenwood has a chance to keep it close today, it's because they shorten the game. They have to play a little bit of what Wahoo wants to do too, and you can't give the ball up because as soon as you turn the ball over, Wahoo always seems to score, and then you get down another score, and then it keeps ballooning and it keeps blowing up, and then they just suffocate the ball away from you, and you don't get a chance to make a comeback.
Action Jackson, how do you parse through Elkhorn North's health going into that one against Gretna East versus Gretna East performance? Can you separate the two?
Yeah, that one was really interesting to me because I didn't really know a lot of the health issues until kind of woke up Saturday and kind of collected all the information then by Sunday to kind of figure out where that discrepancy was. And as much as the story probably was how, beat up Elkhorn North was, how the game kind of changed, Gretna East, man, I don't know if maybe it's just the way the narrative has been because they're a new school, because they're not a regular name that we're used to throwing in. But when you go back through this season of stats, Gretna East is really, really good. Mm-hmm. Connor Sams is playing at a phenomenal level. He's probably going to get over 2,000 rushing yards in the season, depending on what he does tonight. And just kind of looking back on what Gretna East has done too, they're averaging 270 rushing yards a game, 435 total yards a game, 40 points per contest. I mean, those are just phenomenal stats for a team that was on the rise at the end of last year to where they are now. And what they couldn't do last year in beating some of the top of Class B, they're now more mature, they're older, and they have maybe the best players on the field at every single stop that they've been on. Yeah, they've had their early season, maybe a little bit of miscues here and there, but I think that they've handled their business, and I think it showed against Elkhorn North that maybe they're peaking at the right time this season, and they've got it all figured out.
What do you make of that matchup this week, though? We got Gretna East. Obviously, Gretna was not expected to be here, right?
Right.
They have the miracle early.
Knutsen's on a heater.
On absolute heater. You have the miracle, almost like Team of Destiny win where they're down 10 with 30 seconds left. Like, what do you do with the Gretna team? And then you add in.
They got to figure out how to slow them down. Isn't that right, Action Jackson? Like, Gretna defensively is going to have their hands
little civvy
full with G East.
And you add in, hey, first time in this stage that these two schools are playing each other, like this is a whole other thing.
Zero
yeah.
football.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously they played to a one-score game at the end of the regular season. It's going to be, I mean, you talk about the parking issues in the Metro for tonight. Good luck walking from Exarban to West Side, and good luck parking at the Hy-Vee from Gretna and walking back into Gretna Stadium. I mean, those are going to be tremendous atmospheres, great places to be. There's not going to be a seat open across there. So hopefully grandma gets there parked at 4:00 today. But for Gretna being the 11th seed and the lowest seed in all classes, man, have they been performing very well despite having some of those miracle games like against Norris. And it starts and ends really like what you said, DB, with Knutsen. I mean, he's a Mr. Football candidate or Mr. Nebraska candidate as well. And he's had 4 straight games, 330 or more passing yards, over 3 touchdowns in the past 4 games as well. He went 19 of 32, 356 passing yards, 4 scores, and no interceptions last week in a win over York. And that was a York team that went on the road and beat Scotts Bluff, which is not an easy thing to do regardless. I'm also impressed too, because as much as you want to point to the receiving core, how talented they are, how good Knutsen is in the pocket, they can run the ball. They've rushed over 150 yards. So in their past 4 games as well, all wins except for the loss to Gretna East. So the difference maker is, how can you get that extra possession and then stay ahead of Connor Sams? Because if Gretna East gets ahead in this contest, they will again squeeze the life out of you, because Sams isn't going to give that ball up. Gretna East doesn't really fumble the ball all too often. It may come down to turnovers at the end. But if Gretna East has the ball last and they're up, good luck trying to get the ball back, because they're not going to do it very easily.
Let's move on to the main course, Class A here. Obviously, we'll get to the West Side Miller South game here in a second, but it's almost like people have forgot there is another semifinal that goes on.
Yeah, isn't there funny? There's another game happening, and everyone's just, we're talking about one.
We got Papillion La Vista South, who I believe was DB's sleeper to start the season, and a Creighton Prep team that we've seen grow a ton over the last 2 years. What are you seeing in that one?
Well, if you're smart, you probably go to Papillion La Vista South and Creighton Prep first, because that game will be over in about an hour with the way both those teams are going to run the football. It's going to be probably straight up 48 minutes and then done. No one's running out of bounds. Everyone's going to punish each other. But Papio South, and I know Sauter's talked about this before, they have been so impressive in being able to rewrite their own narrative so many different times this year. When Derek Jones went down, I think a lot of people wrote them off. When they had an early season loss, people were saying, okay, well, maybe it's not the Titans anymore. But instead, they just kept on winning, kept on finding ways. And every single week, despite their record, despite their performances, they'd almost felt like, okay, well, this is the week Papio South loses. This is the week the Titans will, drop a game. And in all their playoff matches, it even felt that same way. Oh, well, if you're looking for an upset, here's the game that you could look at. And somehow, some way, they've just found a way to keep going. That's definitely a part of their integrity. That's a part of their culture. And that's a part of the team that they've built there. But Creighton Prep, you can say all the same things. And they have the history behind them, too. It's going to be really a snot-nosed game. Everyone's going to try to just beat each other's heads in with that one. And especially if you're looking on the rushing side of it, I don't know if either of these teams, both these teams are going to want to run the football, and you're going to want to get that big play passing opportunity. The defenses are going to perform well, and I believe, truthfully, that Creighton Prep's defense has maybe performed the best out of all the postseason so far. They've had tremendous performances last week when they were on the road against, or actually when they were at home against Lincoln East. That was a 7-0 game for basically 4 quarters. They put on a late score, and then East was able to get a score late in that contest to make it, I think, 14-7. But yeah, you look back at what Prep has done defensively. If they can control a lot of the time of possession in this one, whichever team maybe holds the ball the longest wins, it's going to be a low-scoring affair. So if you're going out there just prepare for a lot of defense and cheering on for those third downs and hopefully mediums and longs if you're a defensive fan there for high school football.
Yeah, I think at prep it's interesting because as good as each of these teams kind of have their strengths defensively, at Papio South, their secondary I think has been outstanding. Super stingy. They've got that front plan well because they're so sound. With prep, man, it starts and ends with that front. They're versatile. They're deep. Defensively, man, they're a handful. And they're kind of this is a really, really good defensive team. And when you talk complementary, the way they played defensively versus what they want to do offensively, and I get it, Ben Leslie's going to make his first playoff start tonight at quarterback for them, but it still fits with what they want to do. They're gonna control the clock and be good on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think both teams are preparing for it to be a war. They know that this is probably going to be a one-score game. Prep has really battled that into their mentality, even when they've played excellent teams. If they were, playing Omaha Central earlier this year, that game got out of reach, but they played it as if it was a one-score game the entire time. And they just said, listen, we're going to run the ball. We're not going to turn it over. And we're going to do a lot of different things defensively to try to make sure that younger quarterbacks that need to step up and make plays are unable to. And I think that could be the difference maker here. I'm not necessarily leaning one way or the other, but there is something too just about always being on the opposite side of where Papio South has been so far this season. I don't want to be the person that gets it wrong again in the semifinals. So I'm almost feeling like maybe it's time to start believing in the Titans. So I might have to lean that way. But what a great matchup. And also underrated uniform matchup in that one, especially if they go the black and the whites on both sides. I mean, that's going to be fantastic for each way.
All right. Speaking of a great matchup, the one that people have been talking about basically all season, Westside and Millard South finally get to face off again. Obviously, since this Millard South run has started, they've faced off 2 years ago in the regular season. That one goes Westside's way. They faced off last year in the state championship. That one goes Millard South's way. This time it's in the semifinals. The narratives around this game, I think, are super interesting, right? We kind of take, the royal we kind of take Millard South as this, immovable object, this, irresistible force, whatever analogy you want to use. At the same time, I look at a Westside team that, as their core were sophomores last year, was very much in that game into the third quarter in the state championship. How do you weigh those things as you look at this matchup?
Well, yeah, I think that's part of it too, because Damon, I'm not going to speak for you by any means. I'm just going to be the neutral media guy here.
That's good, Carl Weathers.
No one has ever compared me to Carl Weathers.
He was Action Jackson.
Okay, fair.
So why shouldn't the Sidney honk be Carl Weathers? It's very fitting.
I can see the resemblance.
Exactly. It must.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. I'll bring that up at Christmas. I'm sure everyone will agree.
I meant like Happy Gilmore, Carl Weathers.
I want to be in the clouds tonight when Sydney wins. That's where I want to be.
With the gator.
Just keep all your prosthetics attached. That's all I'm saying.
I'll be holding me in my 2016 roster of Sidney Red Raiders football right there. Anyway, so back to what you were asking. Back to what you were asking, Ravi. I was texting you about this last night as well, Ravi, but there is that part of this contest where it is you look at it in so many different ways, where it's, Millard South has just been running through opponents. The question really is, what can Westside do, right? It's that narrative, and it's the Division I talent on one side comparative to the talented players on another. I was there for the Class A final a year ago, and in that game, I felt like Westside was playing as solid of a game plan that they could perform in the first half. It got away from them in the second half because of a couple of big runs. Muirhill had a couple of big opportunities. He ended up scoring, I think, 3 touchdowns in that game. And if you're going to get beat by what was last year's Millard South team, maybe that was the way that had to go down. And Westside was just doing everything possible to make sure that was mitigated. They did get Jet Tamala on one of his worst performances of his 2-year tenure over the past 2 years for the Patriots. It was only like 220 yards. He threw an interception. He did have 3 passing touchdowns. But again, compare it to all of the stats that he's had so far over this past year and even last year. There is a game plan obviously in place for Westside that they can replicate some of that success. And it starts and ends with Tay Jenkins, because as we've said through a couple of these classes across the state of Nebraska, there's going to be a bunch of grandpas pounding on the fence line that say, just run the damn ball. And for Westside, Tay Jenkins is going to need to have maybe that Herculean effort to be able to keep the ball out of the hands of a talented Westside team. Westside obviously is going to have to play great defense, but something tells me that Westside knows exactly where they can pick and choose their battles and try to confuse the former Alabama quarterback. I don't think it's as far of a gap that everyone wants to make it seem like it's going to be, because I've seen what success looks like for Westside against Millard South. The only difference this time is you do have to do it through 4 quarters. Luckily, it's at Phelps Field and not Memorial Stadium, so maybe you get an extra boost because half of Millard South won't be able to know where the parking is. But opposite of that, too, it is going to be a tremendous matchup, and I think that there is a lot of those little moments in the game that could make big differences, because that's how the state final felt last year, despite what the final box score may have looked like.
Yeah, for all the aerial assaults and as good as Millard South is offensively, their defensive line last year and this year, just their defense in general, they play so fast, they play hard. It's not overly complicated. They get to where they're going. They get there in a hurry. Guys like Teagan Urbon and that front is kind of, it seems like kind of a travesty that defense doesn't get more run because of how prolific that offense has been. They're sensational up front.
Yeah, and I know that's part of the reason, that everyone is kind of talking a little bit more about Millard South when it comes to, their offensive numbers and everything that comes with it. And, the West Side defense last year was so talented and so good. And obviously they had a bunch of Division I players, and they had the Butkus Award winner and all that stuff that went along with it too. This Millard South defense is just as talented, but if you know what you can take away from an offense, and you can frustrate an offense from what they prefer to do and what they are most comfortable when they get into 3rd and longs, which again, Millard South has not been in very many this season. When they aren't,
do you know how long it took us to find goal line scenarios?
Right. Yeah.
I know I hadn't even thought about that, but
we're trying to practice short yardage and goal line. It's like,
haven't seen that much this year.
I mean, we're typing in searches and huddle. Fudge.
Well, even in that sense too, there is a sense of maybe, and this is, odd brain football. I don't even know what I was trying to say there. But when you're thinking about this in like the longer form, yeah, Millard South hasn't been tested if they're in a close game, or what if someone gets run down on what's usually a 70-yard touchdown, and then they have to go 1st and goal from the 5, and then they face 3rd and goal from the 3. They are not in that situation very often. Now, I'm not saying that they can't have success there, but there is a part of it where you haven't had 11 games coming into the season where you've been able to work in these game moments against a team that may just be as talented as you are on the opposite side. Frustration can set in. And I know that that's a conversation I've had with different high school head coaches and college coaches that you can talk with, especially play callers, that say, well, I just want the game to go this way. And sometimes I just get impatient and I want the big play to happen. If the big play doesn't happen for Millard South tonight, how long does impatience run until maybe a mistake happens? And that is definitely keys for everything that kind of foils into a West Side upset. But again, Millard South is the favorite. They should be the favorite. They are, one of the most talented teams in football history here in the state of Nebraska. And it's going to take one of the best efforts to see what happens tonight. And I'm very excited. Obviously, I won't be there, but I'm very excited to see, obviously, how that one shakes out and to hear from DB later on, especially in the next week.
Oh, man, you won't have to hear from me. I'll be good.
Okay. All right.
We just
DB, I know.
I'll ask for rides to far places, and hopefully your fiance tags along. You can even bring your dog. We'll be good.
Yeah, that'll be perfect. Now, just to wrap up, because I have to hit this for small town ball stuff, the 8-man games tonight, Crofton and Shelby Rising City. Everyone wants to talk about the points that Millard South's been putting up. Crofton has scored over 200 points in the postseason so far, including a 90-point win in their first round. They play a defense in Shelby Rising City that is going to definitely try to shut down a lot of that rushing attack for Crofton. SRC has only allowed 110 points so far this season, including 24 against the defending state champ Sandy Creek. They play Plainview. Pirates are the lowest seed in 8-man football to make it to this round of the postseason. And if you want just the ultimate football experience, in Wahoo. You can go to Wahoo Ashland Greenwood, down the street, head to Bishop Neumann and Kearney Catholic. That is going to be an excellent matchup. Rashawn Harvey is one of my favorite coaches in the state. I
like him on social media too. They're always so good with like getting film and stuff when I want to get ready for the state finals, and that's a good egg. And I think it surprises a lot of people to not see Norfolk Catholic the last couple of weeks making this kind of run.
Yeah, C2's been a lot of fun. And then out in central Nebraska, if you believe it exists, is Grand Island Central Catholic and Ord. And the Chanticleers, man, I mean, they would be on.
Good on you for saying it right.
Yes, 100%. Hey, I had to check with my sources after I told you that the other day. I was like, I better have gotten this. So, yeah, but Ord and Grand Island Central Catholic, that is going to be another game that wraps up after 48 minutes because, I mean, it will be a ground and pound game between Grayson Sack and Jordan Williams. Ord has the Class C2 playoff record for rushing yards in a single game when they beat Donovan Trumbull in a postseason contest earlier this year. There are just so many good games that are very, very tightly contested and equally matched across this year that I don't think we've seen in some time. And I'm very excited to see what comes out because it means that we're going to have some excellent football in Lincoln in just a few weeks.
Hey, but I had somebody in the chat. Terry said, hey, DB, you got to get out of Omaha. We got X, Y, and Z at Concordia and all these other places. I'm like, Terry, you have no idea who you're talking to. I've been to more small towns for any Omaha guy you've done and done state finals and small classes for a long, long time. Yeah. So anytime you want to have discussions about who's where, holler at your boy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for six-man, Kearney, a week from now is going to be the six-man championships. I know I was in the chat with KB yesterday about it. He's not going to like this, but Southwest and Houston Billiter is the best player in six-man football. If he can get a win today, he will end up probably being the six-man player of the year.
What's his real size?
State title.
What's his real size? Have you seen him in person?
Well, every time I've seen him, he gets like 3 inches taller and like 10 pounds heavier in a good way. Like, I don't understand. When I first met him, he was a little bit below my eye line, and now I'm terrified to see him again because I'm going to be looking up at him.
That is Austin Jacobsen, also known as the Big Game Chain guy. Austin, thanks for the rundown of the state semifinals. We'll talk to you later.
Absolutely.
See you, Carl Weathers.